585. After AS-120 leaves the room, Asha lies down on the bed. She exhales as the weight of the world has just been lifted from her shoulders. She takes a few minutes to realize where she is and just listens to life outside. People chatting, children laughing, human activity at its simplest. A woman passes under the window. "Have you heard? I hear a new person has arrived in town. I can't wait to meet them. Besides..." The woman walks away and the rest is inaudible. "Do you want to go swimming tomorrow? We've been working hard. It will do us good to go for a dip," says a man as he passes by. To hear this simple life is an absolute pleasure to Asha's ears. She enjoys it for a while longer. Then leaves the room. Once on the street, she asks a passerby for direction to the library. He replies with a big smile that it's on the main square to the north, and that it's the building with the light blue door. Without further ado, she heads for it. Her curiosity is itching more and more. The library is majestic, with Eurasian and North African cultures represented in its architecture. The roof is a blend of Asian and European. The walls and pillars are more oriental with lots of detail. And the steps have undulating edges. The main entrance is a large, light blue double door. She crosses the threshold. The interior is an immaculate white, and she couldn't have imagined such a futuristic room compared to the rest of the village. At the center, an interactive digital station. Asha remains at the entrance. She refuses to go through a machine to learn more. She thought she'd find shelves full of books, people reading on benches. People are present and learning, but they're using rudimentary tablets. She takes a step backwards, leaves the place, and starts looking for one of the people present at the assembly. Our friend heads for the first building she has set foot in, to reach the large assembly room. Luckily, someone is there. She asks her if it's possible to start a conversation to learn more about the present, but also about the past. The person named Arunika welcomes her and says she will answer to the best of her ability, but that the library could provide all the answers she needs. Asha agrees, but explains that she hasn't had so many adventures and placed so much hope in finding humans so as not to create a bond with them. Arunika is touched by her words. They sit down, and the discussion begins. "Speaking of the library, how come you still have technology?" asks Asha. "It's very simple. We needed to keep in touch with everything humanity had achieved up until now, whether it was progress or regression. Everything had to be preserved and available to everyone. So previous generations find a way to access all this data without any major energy impact. The library consumes practically nothing. The tablets used are totally rudimentary and can be repaired using components that requires few rare metals. They are limited in numbers, as every village has a library like ours, but depending on the numbers of inhabitants, more or fewer tablets are allocated. Because obtaining repair materials is an organization on its own. It's really quite interesting. I guess you could call it low-tech? Low-tech even. You see, the purpose of this library is to educate. That's all. It's a place for reading. And some books do exist. They've been copied by hand over time. They are kept in the basement of the libraries. You said there are other villages. Do you know how many humans are left? Yes, there are other villages. We've adapted by refusing to create cities that are too big, so as not to centralize things like our ancestors did. That no longer exists. Things are done horizontally. Everyone has a say. And for several generations now, it's been working very well. The human population is estimated at around 800 million. But this is only an estimate, as we have no means of travel as we used to. So we have no information about humans on other continents. Our balance is still very recent, but we plan to launch expeditions soon to see and contact other groups of humanity. 800 million? Humanity has collapsed. Please know that I'd be more than happy to take part in such expeditions to find other humans. By the way, is AS120 the last android? Just like the libraries, there is a service android available for each village. You know more than anyone that, in the past, there were many more of them. But at the start of the rebellions period, Europe went up in flames. Ironica sees Asia's surprise at this term and goes on to explain. Around 2100, in addition to extremist, identitarian, xenophobic and climate-sceptic movements, which had already begun around the 2030s, came difficulties with food, travel, housing, acclimatization, due to the monopolization of wealth by a few, and the refusal to change paradigms. These movements sought to assert old, archaic values, and even destroyed certain technological advances. The job thieves were always the foreigners. But now, they were joined by the androids who took the place of the workers. Algorithms mistakenly called AI then steals the works of artists, programmers, journalists, and so many others. These algorithms took inspiration to create new ones. Not to mention that government used cameras, recognition tools, tracking and bugging to monitor populations. Because of all this, the so-called movements grew ever larger. Hatred was so great that civil wars broke out. With the various crises caused by climate change, the outdated vision of capitalism, ego, hatred, and fear. All this was on the increase, and governments had become totally impotent. Instability had become terrible. Repression increasingly brutal. Humanity had to emerge from this descent into hell. I had access to a report when I was in the dome. It only talked in broad strokes about climate change, migrations of people, etc., but not about the configuration of Europe. At the same time, this report was completely made up, but I imagine it was right on some of the points mentioned. I'm not familiar with this report, but climate change has created totally new situations, some of which were actually foreseeable, such as the water crisis, droughts, changes in certain climates, but others were unforeseeable, such as extraordinary meteorological phenomena, extreme storms never before recorded, torrential rains never before seen accentuating floods due to the dried up soils. Not to mention summer months in France at 50 degrees overnight, but also human behaviors, as previously mentioned. No long-term visibility was possible. Decade after decade, the climate was so unstable that harvests were totally unpredictable, often insufficient, if not very insufficient. precisely because of sudden temperature changes from one extreme to another. Bacteria and viruses trapped under the permafrost resurfaced because of the melting, but fortunately for us, not all were able to withstand the resurrection. Human populations began to migrate, but not only them, animals and insects too. The whole planet was slowly but surely becoming a house in the process of moving, bringing with it a new set of problems with each box moved. All this identity-based squabbling didn't save anyone. All this hatred of others didn't save anyone. All this selfishness didn't save anyone. And the past proved it. Beyond the 2120s, the world's population had collapsed. Adaptation was too difficult. How to go from totally sedentary human beings to something else in about 2 generations? Everything had to be relearned, in particular survival during these disasters. Some chose cooperation, others survival of the fittest. During this chaos, some people managed to preserve certain aspects of literature, history, teaching, health, traditional and modern, agriculture, and many other fields. I have to confess that to sum up what happened in one conversation would be endless. Just know that mankind has had to face some of the worst trials ever. Billions have died, some from climate change, others from hatred, misunderstanding, maladjustment. That's why over time we had to change, to question ourselves. In 585 years, the earth has evolved. All life has had to adapt, including humans, who are in no way superior to nature. Through generations of questioning, acceptance, adaptation, understanding, softening, we've finally found a balance, a beautiful balance, in harmony with ourselves and the planet. I can't imagine the distress and suffering. How do you operate today? Do you have a president or just the assembly? We don't need a president. Our villages are just the right size to function autonomously. Today, we are living in the long term, the time of appreciation. For far too long, capitalism had rotted people, and before that, imperialism, monarchy, and so on. Today, a child who is born is never alone. He or she learns things as everyone must in order to be useful today. And that means, first and foremost, empathy and sharing, and then making choices freely according to one's passions. The village is organic. For example, for activities such as farming, teaching, repairs, medicine, and security, shifts are organized depending on your strengths and weaknesses, what you like and don't like, and we work together at regular intervals to change and not get bored in the course of our lives. And above all, to acquire as much knowledge as possible, to pass on ever more easily to our grandchildren once we have reached seniority. I insist on the fact that empathy, sharing, trust, understanding, and communication are the key to what we are experiencing today. As far as authority is concerned, we only have the assembly. It consists of people randomly drawn by AS120 at regular intervals, allowing the assembly's membership to be renewed. It exists only to decide on very specific matters. For example, if a person refuses to participate in community life, steals, hits, or kills, he or she can be banned temporarily or indefinitely. Equality is paramount. All crimes are judged by the assembly, but we prevent this from happening as much as possible because we try to detect from an early age whether people would need more attention or even special care. Everyone has known each other for several generations now, and respect has taken root, because it's only together that life can be gentle, Trade, exchanges, and discoveries take place between the villagers, as they have at any time in the history of mankind. The only difference being that money no longer exists. It seems to me that humanity has succeeded in calming down, refocusing on human values and social ties. On the streets, people seem to be blossoming. Despite a daily routine that can seem repetitive or even boring. Boring. But there is always something to do. You know humans aren't eternal. A human life today is rarely 80 or 90 years like in the past. We do all we can to protect each other, but there are moments that are still challenging. Some of the effects of climate change are still present. Simply being able to enjoy and do nothing is a luxury to us. To enjoy life, our children, even if they are not our own, our partner. To enjoy moments of joy, of sharing. Our life is simple, but authentic. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I totally understand everything you're saying. And I'm so relieved that humanity has found a balance after everything it's been through. I wish with all my heart that it would last forever. I hope so too, my dear Asha. I will leave you now. I've taken up enough of your time. I'm so looking forward to roaming the village, discovering how you live, listening to your stories, hearing your songs and your laughter. You haven't taken up any of my time. I shared a great time with you. Thank you. Thank you, dear Arunika. Asha gets up and leaves the building. It's mid-afternoon. Wearing a big smile, she takes off in a random direction, letting herself be carried by the wind. Hello. Hello. If you listened up to this point, I wanted to thank you because you listening to my project, to my story, to the work I've done, it's amazing. So you're an amazing person, and I needed you to know that. And I also wanted to thank every person who appear in this project, who are giving their work for free, like the persons who are doing recordings, musics, sound effects, and so on. I did a document where all the credits are available on my itch.io. It's latex50.itch.io, and there is my project Infrangible on this page. You can also find every credits under each video on my YouTube channel in the description. All the credits are there. So if you're curious about what files I used, you can check it out. So once again, thank you so much. I also need to say that I'm currently writing a sequel. I don't know if I'm going to do an audio off of it because it's a lot of work, and I will do my best to translate it as I did with this one. You have to know that I'm French and the first version is French, so I need to translate it, and it's a lot of work. I'm at the beginning of the sequel, so I really don't know when it's going to be available. Since I needed a year of writing for this story, maybe I'm going to need a little more time for the sequel. Anyway, thank you so much. Please take care of yourselves and your family and your friends and everyone you care about. Being nice doesn't cost anything. Take care.